music, music, music,
technology,
music,
technology,
music, music,
technology,
teacher,
music,
technology,
teacher, teacher,
network,
teacher,
network,
teacher.
network.
Hi everyone, this is Heath with the Music Technology Teacher Network, www.mutechteachernet.com. Now this episode is not the episode I was planning on making, but it's the one that I think is necessary. So I think I'll call the title of this episode, The Answer is No, this is not possible. What I'm talking about are live synchronous concerts. So I've been seeing posts about how an administrator has come to you and explained how they have seen these wonderful videos on uBook, Insta, Twitter, FaceTube of these choirs, orchestras, or bands giving these virtual concerts from individually remote locations. And it would be really important to boost the spirit of our community if we could have the orca-band choir present a spring concert virtually. Isn't that a great idea? You know, just set up a Google Meet and then have all the kids like tune in with their instruments, and then you could conduct and they could just all sing together, and then all the parents could tune in and watch and to the Google Meet, and it would just be such a wonderful boost to our community during this really, really difficult time. Could we make that work? Now, understand when they say we, they mean you. So let me go out on a limb here, and let's say that you work for a principal who has hired you as a professional, who is a master of your content area, a member of all the appropriate professional organizations that keeps you up to date on all the latest pedagogical techniques and best practices for delivering instruction to your students. And as such, said principal requests your input as the professional of your content area in the school. You look at the principal and say, no. Not only is that not technically or logistically possible, but it would not be in the best interest of the students. So though disappointed, the principal accepts your judgment because, well, you're the professional. End of conversation. So if that's the situation you're in, thank you for tuning in and watching the video. You probably can stop it now because there's not any other information that you need. But if you're not in that situation, let me offer you some advice and some evidence that our administrators love to have that you can present to your principal that you're not just being difficult or lazy. Let's start with some simple vocabulary. Remember, they saw a virtual choir performing. So virtual means simulated. Virtual reality is not reality. Think about CGI or computer-generated image. Go ahead, try to convince somebody that the Hulk is real because, well, you saw him, like you saw Bruce Banner transform into the Hulk in that awesome movie, The Avengers, and it certainly looked like it was real, so it must be, right? Now, let me advise you to be tactful. Despite what may be going on inside of your head, be mindful of what comes out of your mouth. Here in the South, we would probably look at them and go, bless your heart. That's, of course, if our administrator was from, say, like the Midwest or somewhere. But let's say the vocabulary lesson and the anecdotal analogy of CGI didn't work. Let's consider what is actually happening here. The great thing about Google Drives and iCloud is that all these apps and data are stored up in the cloud. And we've been programmed to believe that this is some mystical or magical place. Does anyone remember those commercials that started to come out in the early 90s with the advent of the internet? If not, let's take a look to refresh your memory.
Nice of you to join us.
And also estimated in New York and consumer research in San Diego. All because a five the size of a human hair carries as much data as all radio frequencies put together, times 1,000.
So the reality is that data is real. It occupies space. You see, when we save a file to our Google Drive, it doesn't just float around up in the ether until we grab it and somehow magically pull it back down to our computers. Google has data centers set up all around the country, all around the world, really. And when we create data or information on our computers or in our Google Drive, that's where it goes. It goes to a physical place. Check out this map marking the locations of the data centers that Google has in the US. Most of these are in very rural areas. And if we did drive by one of these locations, we'd probably have no idea what it even was. My point is that when your computer, microphone, and camera captures these images and sounds on your computer, Google sends that data to one of these data centers. Then the image and the sound are sent from the data center to whoever's on the other end participating in the meeting. And then once they see your image and video, their response to that is sent back to a data center before it's sent back to you. And all of that takes time. Even if you're typing a document on your computer, the letter on that screen doesn't appear at the exact instant that you strike the key. The time that it takes that signal to travel from your computer keyboard to the screen is measured in microseconds. It's imperceptible to humans, but at the same time, it is a measurable amount of time. You may have also experienced the time that you've been typing and for a couple seconds, your computer freezes up and then all of a sudden, the entire word appears. Well, if Google is running all their information on this information superhighway, our personal computers are transmitting information on like dirt roads or just trails. Think about your kitchen sink or maybe your bathroom sink. If you pour water into that sink, if the water can't pass through the drain just as fast or quicker than you're pouring it in, that water is going to start to back up and the sink's going to fill up. Well, the same thing happens with the data that's, whether it's on the dirt roads of our PCs or if it's traveling down the superhighway to these, Google and iCloud data centers. If you get more data trying to pass through these drains that send it to these different places, the information gets backed up. And that's what causes that keyboard to pause every now and then, because your computer just has too much stuff going on, more than it can process at one time. And that's going to happen in your Google Meets also, because that information on the superhighway sometimes is going to slow down. And in addition to the time that it takes to transfer that data to the data centers and back, you also are going to have times that data is going to slow down as the traffic increases. So if all of this still seems rather obtuse and abstract, let me show you a real example. I conducted an experiment. So I took 3 devices. I have a desktop computer, I have a laptop computer, and I have an iPad. And so what I did was I created a Google Meet using one of my personal Google accounts. And then I went to my laptop and I joined that meeting using my school account. And then I went to my iPad and I joined the meeting using my son's school Google account. So that had like an actual student account. In addition, I also opened the webcam that's connected directly to my computer, because that camera is going to give me the least amount of latency, because that information is just being transmitted from camera to computer screen. So that's going to give me the closest image to real time of the other devices that I'm using. So let's take a look at what happened. Let's all sing together. Da 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 dee da 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 dee da dee da dee da dee dee da dee da 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 dee da dee da da dee da dee da da. Now remember, I had all 4 devices sitting right here in front of me. But it doesn't matter because the data had to go to Iowa or Oregon or maybe just a few miles down the road from me in Atlanta. And those trips take time. And just because I'm geographically closest to Atlanta doesn't mean that that's where my data was sent. If the traffic is heavy in Atlanta, Google's going to send that data to Iowa or Oregon, and it takes a different amount of time for it to get to Iowa and back or Oregon and back as it gets to Atlanta and back. And even though I had all three of these devices sitting right here in front of me, those devices may not be sending and receiving data through the same data centers. They're going to track it differently. And that transmission of data is going to take different amount of time. And that's going to happen with all of your students too. When you consider what happened to me in this little experiment with just 3 devices, imagine what's going to happen when you add your entire ensemble to this Google Meet. Whether that's 50, 80, 100 students that are all trying to perform at the same time, or heaven forbid that you're trying to actually combine the band, the choir, and the orchestra. And then you add all these parents and community people that are going to tune in to see this fantastic virtual concert also. You're going to be creating some major traffic jams that are all kind of running through these local servers. And it's going to be what we refer to sometimes as a hot mess. Hopefully, looking at this example, when your administrator or superintendent comes and asks, if they don't just take your opinion as the consummate professional that you are, perhaps show them some of this video and some of the information I've shared with you. But whatever you do, somehow you have to let them know that the answer is simply no. This is not possible to do, at least not today. If there's anybody that's going to figure out how to do it, it's going to be those kids that are sitting in front of you on most days, or in the case today, what we're dealing with, that are sitting in front of these computers and listening to your videos that you can give them and the conversations that you're having digitally right now. If we can spark their imagination, if we can teach them how to be expressive and how to think outside of the box, then maybe one day they'll be the ones to figure out how to make all this stuff work. But in the meantime, I hope this video has been helpful. I hope you're safe. I hope you're healthy, and I hope you're staying sane out there. Remember, keep your distance, but a smile can go a really long way. Please subscribe, share with your friends if you've enjoyed these videos, and best of luck to all of you.
Music, music, music,
Technology,
music,
technology,
music, music,
technology,
teacher, 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 teacher,
music,
technology,
teacher, teacher, teacher,
network,
teacher,
network,
teacher,
network, network, music,
technology,
teacher,
network, music,
technology,
teacher,
network,
tech,
teacher,
network, music,
technology,
teacher,
network, music,
technology,
teacher,
network,
tech,
teacher,
network.